The pen trembled in Daniel's hand, ink bleeding into the paper like a wound. He sat at the kitchen table, the same one where he and Claire had shared coffee and quiet mornings for 12 years, now a battleground of legal documents. Her signature was already there, sharp and deliberate, staring back at him. He'd signed without reading, his heart pounding so loud it drowned out the lawyer's voice on the phone. "You killed your case," the attorney screamed, his words slicing through the fog of Daniel's shock. "Why the hell would you sign?" Daniel's breath caught, a jagged inhale that burned his chest. The room smelled of stale coffee and Claire's perfume, lingering like a ghost. He'd found the papers tucked in her nightstand drawer, hidden beneath a scarf he'd bought her in Venice. Divorce papers. Her handwriting on the envelope, his name in blue ink, soft as a whisper but heavy as betrayal. He hadn't known. Hadn't suspected. Not until that moment, 3 hours ago, when the world tilted. The morning had started like any other. Daniel woke to the hum of the coffee maker, the clink of Claire's mug against the counter. She'd been distant lately, her smiles thin, her eyes darting away when he tried to hold her gaze. He'd chalked it up to stress. Her late nights at the gallery, the new exhibit she was curating. "You're working too hard," he'd said last week, brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. She'd flinched just slightly and he'd laughed it off, blaming her exhaustion. Now that flinch replayed in his mind, a warning he'd ignored. He wandered into the living room, the divorce papers still clutched in his hand, their edges crumpling under his grip. The walls were lined with her paintings, vibrant swirls of color, each one a piece of her soul. He'd always loved how she poured herself into her art, how she'd light up when talking about brushstrokes and light. But now he wondered, had she been painting someone else's story? The thought clawed at him, raw and relentless. His phone buzzed. A text from Claire, at the gallery. "Late again. Don't wait up. No love you, no warmth." Just words cold and clipped. He stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the reply button. What could he say? "I found the papers." Why? Instead he typed nothing, setting the phone down as if it might burn him. The first red flag had come months ago, though he hadn't seen it then. A late-night call she'd taken in the backyard, her voice low, her laughter soft and unfamiliar. When he'd asked who it was, she'd shrugged, saying, "Just a colleague. Gallery stuff." He'd believed her because he wanted to, because love was trust, wasn't it? But there were other signs. The way she'd started locking her phone, the new perfume she wore only on certain nights, the way her eyes lingered on the horizon when they drove together, as if she were already somewhere else. Daniel sank onto the couch, the papers beside him like a loaded gun. He replayed their last real conversation, 2 weeks ago, over dinner. She'd been distracted, twirling her wineglass, her answers short. "You okay?" he'd asked, reaching for her hand. She'd pulled back, just an inch, but enough to sting. "I'm fine," she'd said, her voice tight. "Just tired." He'd let it go, poured more wine, told himself it was nothing. Now he saw it for what it was, a crack in the foundation, spreading. He stood, pacing the hardwood floor, each step echoing in the silent house. The clock ticked, relentless, marking the hours until she'd come home, if she came home. He needed answers, but the thought of confronting her terrified him. What if she admitted it? What if she didn't? His mind churned, conjuring images of her with someone else, laughing, touching, sharing secrets she'd never shared with him. The betrayal wasn't just in the papers, it was in the life she'd built without him. He drove to the gallery, the divorce papers folded in his jacket pocket. The city blurred past, neon signs, rain-slicked streets, the hum of late-night traffic. His heart raced, a drumbeat of dread and determination. The gallery's glass facade glowed under streetlights, Claire's name in bold letters on a sign, Claire Emerson, curator. Pride had once swelled in him at that sight. Now it felt like a lie. Inside, the air was cool, scented with wax and paint. Her office door was ajar, light spilling out. He heard her voice, low and intimate, followed by a man's laugh. Daniel froze, his pulse a roar in his ears. He stepped closer, peering through the gap. Claire sat on her desk, her skirt riding up slightly, her hand resting on a man's arm. He was tall, with dark hair and a smile that made Daniel's stomach lurch. The man leaned in, whispering something that made Claire laugh, a sound Daniel hadn't heard in months. Claire, Daniel said, his voice cracking like glass. She spun around, her eyes wide, her hand dropping from the man's arm. The stranger turned, his expression shifting from surprise to something harder, defensive. Daniel, she said, her voice a mix of guilt and defiance. What are you doing here? I found the papers, he said, pulling them from his pocket. They trembled in his hand. A flag of surrender. Why didn't you tell me? Her face softened, but only for a moment. I didn't know how, she said, stepping toward him. The man stayed silent, watching, his presence a wound Daniel couldn't ignore. Didn't know how? Daniel's voice rose raw with hurt. 12 years, Claire. And you hide this? You sneak around with. He gestured at the man, unable to say the word him. Evan, she said quietly, naming the stranger. We've been working together. Working? Daniel spat, the word bitter. Is that what you call it? Her eyes flashed, a spark of anger. You don't understand, she said. You never did. You think love is enough, but it's not. Not when I'm drowning, and you don't even see it. Drowning? He laughed, a hollow sound. I gave you everything. My heart, my life. And I gave you mine, she shouted, tears brimming. But you stopped seeing me, Daniel. You saw the wife, the artist, not me. Evan, he saw me. The words hit like a blade, slicing through years of memories. Daniel stumbled back, the papers slipping to the floor. Evan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Maybe you should go, he said, not unkindly. Daniel ignored him, his eyes locked on Claire. Why didn't you talk to me? Why this? He pointed at the papers, his voice breaking. Because I was scared, she whispered. Scared of losing you. Scared of staying. Back home, Daniel sat at the kitchen table again. The signed papers before him. He'd called his attorney in a daze, confessed to signing them. You killed your case, the lawyer had yelled, explaining how Daniel's signature forfeited his leverage, his chance to fight for their home, their life. But Daniel didn't care about the house. He cared about her, even now. He saw it clearly now. Her late nights weren't just work, her distance wasn't just stress. She'd been pulling away, building a life with Evan, while Daniel clung to a marriage that no longer existed. The betrayal wasn't just an affair. It was her choice to let him go without a word, to let him believe they were still whole. He stood, walked to the sink, and poured the cold coffee down the drain. The papers lay on the table, a finality he couldn't undo. He'd signed them not out of defeat, but out of love. A desperate hope that letting her go might set her free, might somehow heal the ache in his chest. But as he stared at the empty house, her paintings watching him like silent witnesses, he knew the truth. Freedom wasn't his to give. She'd already taken it. The doorbell rang, sharp and sudden. Through the window he saw Claire, her face pale, her eyes red. In her hand a letter unsealed. His name was on it, in her handwriting, just like the divorce papers. His heart stuttered. Another confession? An apology? Or something worse? He opened the door, the weight of her betrayal still heavy between them, and waited for her to speak.